Alright guys, it's Copper Cutlass. It's been a while, probably a couple of weeks. We've been patiently waiting to try to get the car out to the track, but also I'm not feeling very confident with what's going on. The first couple times I drove the car, it drove great. Um, you know, it, the first time I drove it, it drove absolutely awesome, but we had a hint of detonation at like idle. And we have the timing locked out on this thing. All right, we put race gas in it. Well, we have about 10.5 to 1 compression ratio, maybe a hair more, based off the calculations and the old numbers I went through. So we definitely need racing fuel or to mix it in. I just went and got 5 gallons of racing fuel to rule it out, and it stopped doing what it did. As soon as the engine would get hot, it would start to detonate at idle. Once you hit about 180, it would start doing it. And then what hinted me to that is I loosened up the distributor and turned it back as it was running and just kind of sped up the idle a little bit, because obviously if you turn down your timing, your idle is going to start to cut out a hair. And it kind of subsided substantially. So, okay, cool. We got a detonation issue. No problem. But it wouldn't do it under load. But then again, detonation is a silent killer, right? So that problem is solved. But now the other problem I have is as soon as this thing hits like 5,000 RPM, it starts to break up really bad. And I mean like bad. And then I'll pull second gear and pull it back up, and then it won't do it as bad. So I don't know. It seems to be like an ignition problem. So I picked up a big shout out and thank you to Dr. Dan. He hooked me up with a Pro Billet distributor. David Meyer gave me this ignition box a while ago, and we're going to use a Pro Billet, the MSD box. I'm going to get a good coil, and we're going to hook it all up to rule out our ignition issues, just to make sure that it is, because we've been running these old HEIs for a while, and the only good HEI distributor I had was the one that broke in the car. But these distributors still work well. I mean, this one has a brand new high output Pertronics module, which worked fine before. New cap, new rotor, new coil, everything checks out good. So I don't know where it's breaking up, because this thing did go to 7,000 RPM plenty of times. And, this popping developed, and it's starting to do it at like, I watched the tack, and it's like right at 5,000 RPM, it starts to break up. So the only other thing I could think of, if it's a valve spring issue, something's going on. These heads were freshened up and the springs were put in, but I don't exactly remember the specs on the springs from comp. So I'm going to have to look that up versus what I had. We could have some valve float issues. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here, but just because you put new parts in it doesn't make it better. But we did change valves. We did change springs. It's the same old cam. It was already broken in. So, and this thing, it drives and runs great. I mean, we're cruising at 3,000, 4,000 RPM, and this car is absolutely happy. I mean, now that we got the tune dialed in pretty much and everything, it's just that breaking up issue that we're having that it's doing. And it's acting like it did when I had the with the J-headed engine, when we were oil fouling the number 5 spark plug. It's acting like that. It's breaking up really, really bad. But all of the spark plugs look absolutely perfect on this thing. It idles fat, and it'll wet the plugs down if you idle it too long. But this thing, the plugs look absolutely phenomenal on it. So the tune is pretty good all across the board. All the plugs look even. I checked all of them. So we don't have like a dead cylinder. We don't have that same issue we did as the other engine. So I'm kind of, I wouldn't say frustrated, but this is definitely going to be a delay. I'm ordering up parts tonight to put the MSD distributor in there. And then once you get that swapped out, we're going to see what it does. Hopefully I get some time during the week. It's supposed to be really hot this week coming up, and work has been busy, and I have to work next weekend for sure. So, it seems like we're probably going to keep racing the Pontiac, and this is going to be an ongoing thing to figure out what the fuck is going on, because I swapped out 2 different carburetors with 2 different tunes. The 750 carburetor is sitting right there the tune on that carburetor was pretty spot on. It would see a light lean spike when you open up the throttle all the way real fast, but it wouldn't pop. It would, recover right away. And if I went from like a light preload to wide open throttle, like if you were to launch, this thing was perfect. Now this carburetor is a lot fatter. It's an 850 annular boosters. It's definitely a race piece. It was set up by a guy I know who's a carburetor guy, and it worked really well in the J-headed engine, and it works really well on this engine as well. It's just bigger. It's got 78 and 91 jets, which are actually smaller than the 750, but this carburetor, because of the booster and everything, it's going to draw fuel differently. So the AFR reads pretty good, but it's a little bit fatter, so we know it's not a lean issue. So we got that going on. So for now, I'm going to pop off the valve springs and see if there's anything visible in there. I'm letting the oil drain back. I just got back from driving it. It's still pretty hot, so I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss here because I've never had an issue like this before where the car hits like, it's breaking up. But this thing, the oil pressure is great. It cruises absolutely great. It's nice. It stays nice and cool. Like today's, like right now it's already 85 degrees and it's staying at like 160. So it's running really, really nice. But regardless, I figure I'd update you guys on what's going on. So all I can say is, if you guys have followed along, it's been a hell of a summer and a saga. So share, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram as Copper Colors. We'll see you guys around.